In today's video, we're going to walk you through how to set bid adjustments the right way inside Google Ads. And having managed dozens of Google Ads accounts for service-based businesses in different industries, these can make a massive difference to the amount of conversions you're receiving and the cost you pay per conversion, especially when there's days of the week, locations, devices, and audiences that are performing better or worse than others. And the first thing worth mentioning, and technically why most bid adjustments don't actually work, is that if you're using smart or automated bidding, like for example, maximize conversions or target CPA, like we have in this case, then Google automates all of the bid adjustments in real time. So if you make any bid adjustments to locations, ad schedule, devices, or audiences, it's not actually going to make any difference when you're using smart bidding or maximize conversions because Google technically does all of that for you. Whereas if we were using a different bidding strategy here, for example, whether it be manual CPC or maximize clicks, and even though maximize clicks itself is an automated bidding strategy, the bid adjustments actually do work for these bidding strategies. So let's just say, for example, we had manual CPC or even max clicks as our bidding strategy, and then we went into ad schedule, and let's just say we saw that Tuesdays was the best day of the week in terms of performance as we see it is for this campaign, and we wanted to add a positive 20% bid adjustment. If our maximum cost per click bid limit inside max clicks was €5 and we added a positive bid adjustment of 20%, then technically we'd be willing to pay up to €6 per click by adding an extra 20% to that day of the week. So that's exactly what a positive bid adjustment looks like. It adds that percentage to what you're willing to pay per click already. And even though we have a positive bid adjustment here from before that we set previously of positive 15% for Tuesdays, it's not going to make much of a difference now that we're using a target CPA inside this campaign. And now we're going to cover each of the four main areas of where you can add bid adjustments and how to actually add bid adjustments to each of these areas. And if you'd like a free checklist that covers everything you need to remember when it comes to bid adjustments and everything else when it comes to setting up and managing a Google Ads campaign from start to finish, I'll leave a link for this checklist down below. And if you are a service-based business and looking for help to have all of this done and implemented for you, including everything from your conversion tracking, landing pages, and so on, there's also a link for that down below. And in terms of making your own bid adjustments, the first place you can look, as we can see here, is the ad schedule. And assuming that you're not using smart bidding, you can look at each of these individual days of the week and make bid adjustments to each day. And when it comes to, okay, like how do I actually know what percent bid adjustment to add and which days of the week should I actually add the bid adjustment for? The way I typically like to go about this is I like to look at the overall cost per conversion for the entire campaign. So for example, let's just say it's €20 in this case here. And then what I want to do is look at days of the week that are either better or worse than this average cost per conversion. So for example, Monday here is more or less the exact same, so we would keep that as is. Whereas Tuesdays here, for example, is a €17 cost per conversion, which is about 15% better than the average, which is why it makes sense to have a positive bid adjustment of 15% here in this case. And then on the other hand, on Thursdays and Fridays, the cost per conversion seems to be pretty close to the average. But on Wednesdays then, it looks like the cost per conversion is quite higher than the average by almost 20% because €4 on top of €20, it's 20% of that. So in this case, it would make sense, if anything, to add a 20% negative bid adjustment for this day of the week. So when it comes to actually adding your bid adjustment then for the days of the week, you can just come here to edit, and then you can simply press increase or decrease. And in this case, we would go decrease and then add in 20% here and press save. And this is how you would approach bid adjustments for all aspects, whether it's devices or audiences and so on. You would compare the actual cost per conversion of each element to the average, and then that's how you know exactly what percentage of a negative or a positive bid adjustment you actually apply based on how far away or how close it is to your average cost per conversion. The next one then we have locations, and you follow the exact same process as you would for the days of the week. So again, we can see that our average cost per conversion here is around the €20 mark. And what we can do then is look at each of the individual locations that we're targeting inside this campaign. And if any are better or worse than this average, then we can add a positive or negative bid adjustment in relation to how much better or worse that this location actually is compared to the overall average. And just to give you one or two examples, so here this location has a cost per conversion that's about €4 better than the average cost per conversion. And so this cost per conversion is about 20% better than the average. So if anything, it would make sense to have a positive bid adjustment of 20% here. And on the other hand, then we have this location, which has a cost per conversion that's around 20% worse than the average. So it would make sense to add a negative bid adjustment of 20% here. So you can just change this to negative and add in 20%. And the next place then we can look is devices, and it's just as easy to add in your positive or negative bid adjustments, because all you have to do under bid adjustments is just press the pencil icon and add your positive or negative adjustment. And now in this case, there won't be any need to add bid adjustments because it's actually a call only campaign that's running on mobile phones only. But the chances are you're running responsive search ads or a regular search campaign where you'll be getting traffic on mobile phones, computers, and tablets. And for example, you might not want to get any traffic on tablets at all because in some campaigns it usually doesn't lead to very high quality leads. So you might want to, for example, add a decrease of 100% for tablet traffic if you don't want to be getting any traffic for tablets at all. And apart from that, then you can just compare mobile phones and computers with the overall average. And then if one is significantly better than the other, let's just say, for example, the cost per conversion of computers was 50% less than the average, then you could add a positive bid adjustment of 50% here for computers. And lastly, then we have audiences. So if you're targeting any audiences, you can do the exact same thing for your audience segments, but we have all of these just set to observation here. But it's more so to get into demographics, so age and gender. Now, in the US as well, you'll also be able to do this for household income. So you might, for example, want to add positive bid adjustments for top 10% earners that are more likely going to be interested in the services that you offer. But apart from that, you can look at the numbers for both age and gender. And if you find that any age groups are performing better than others, or worse than others, or same with gender, then you can add positive or bid adjustments accordingly. And with your demographics, you'll have the option to see these both in ad group view and campaign view. And what I like to do first of all is look at each one in the campaign view. And what you can do as well to give yourself a really clear picture of which is performing best is you can pull up two columns here. So for example, cost per conversion in the blue and conversion rate in the red. And to figure out which age group here, for example, is the best performer, you want the blue bar to be as low as possible because we want a low cost per conversion, and we want the red bar to be as high as possible because we want a high conversion rate. And then just looking at these bars, it's quite easy to see, which areas are performing best. Even though in this campaign, for the most part, it does look like the age groups are performing quite similarly. But you can also look at the actual numbers in the table here, where you can see the conversion rates and cost per conversion of each of the individual age groups. So here, for example, the average cost per conversion is around €20 again, but the 18 to 24-year-old age group, the cost per conversion is a lot higher than that. So if you wanted to add a negative bid adjustments for that age group, what you have to do this time when it comes to adding a bid adjustment is do it at the ad group view. So you can't do it at the campaign view this time. But what you want to do then to add a negative bid adjustment for all the 18 to 24-year-olds, and you can see here that we actually did 90% negative bid adjustments for them in this campaign already, because for the services that this company offers, it doesn't make sense for 18 to 24-year-olds to see the ads anyway. But just to show you how to do this, what you can do first is add a filter and then just go to age and then choose 18 to 24-year-olds, press apply, and then you can select them all, press edit, change bid adjustments, and then scroll back down here and choose increase or decrease and add in the percentage here. So let's just say, for example, you could add a negative bid adjustment of 50% for this age group and press apply. And then the bid adjustment that you add will show up here as well. And you can also do the exact same thing with gender. So you can look at it at the campaign view first of all to get a clear picture of overall which is performing better. And you can see here, for example, male and female are performing exactly the same, with unknown slightly worse. So for example, 10% worse. So what we could do then is add a 10% negative bid adjustment for unknown. So it's the exact same thing as doing it for age group. Go back to the ad group view, go to add filter, gender, unknown, press apply, and then just select them all again, press edit, change bid adjustments, and you can just add your positive or negative bid adjustment again as you like. And that's how you add your bid adjustments then as well for audiences. So hopefully this video gave you clarity on how bid adjustments work inside Google Ads and how to actually go about adding them. And if there are any other aspects of the campaign creation or optimization stage that you're not fully sure on, feel free to have a look at some of the other videos inside this playlist that should appear alongside the screen now that goes into more detail on each of those individual aspects inside a Google Ads campaign.